You've got fast planes like the F-15, the MiG-21, the Concorde, but fast could also mean stupidly fast. The MiG-25, the SR-71, they're fast, yeah, very fast, but they're not even close to the fastest. Which got me thinking, what actually is the fastest plane ever made? And of course, I can't just throw in fighter jets and call it a day. That would be way too easy. Let's go a little deeper. This, the NASA X-43. This isn't just fast, this is Mach 9.6 fast. That's around 11,800 kilometers per hour, or 7,332 miles per hour. Mach 1 is the speed of sound. Mach 2 is insane. Mach 3, you're kinda untouchable. You're basically teetering on the edge of time travel. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I'm saying. Here's where things get interesting, because the X-43 didn't use a normal jet engine. No turbines, no spinning fans, nothing like that. They used something called a scramjet, supersonic combustion ramjet, which basically means the air going into the engine is already moving faster than the speed of sound. Now think about how ridiculous that is. Normal jet engines slow air down before combustion. This thing, it keeps it fast, and somehow it works. But there is a catch, a big one. It couldn't even take off on its own. It had to be strapped onto a rocket, dropped from a B-52, boosted to insane speeds, and then the engine kicked in. Still, it only ran for about 10 seconds. 10 seconds, that's it. Blink, and you've missed it. Missed the fastest flight ever recorded. So yeah, fastest, technically yes. Practical? No. But you see, that's not the point. The X-43 was proof that hypersonic air-breathing flight is actually possible, and that is a big deal. Let's tone it down a bit to something that actually, operated. The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird. This thing, Mach 3.3, but just saying the speed doesn't do it justice, because the SR-71 wasn't just fast. It was literally built around being fast. Everything about it screamed, go faster. The engines, Pratt & Whitney J58s, not normal jet engines. At high speeds, they basically turned into ramjets. So the faster you went, the more efficient they became. That's just downright unfair. Then there's the materials. At Mach 3, friction with the air heats the aircraft to insane temperatures. We're talking 300 degrees Celsius plus on the skin. So Lockheed said, fine, we'll just use titanium. Over 85% of the aircraft is titanium. In the 1960s, fun fact, most of that titanium came from the Soviet Union. Yeah, the same people this thing was spying on. That's not even the craziest part, because when the SR-71 sat on the ground, it actually leaked fuel on purpose, because at high speeds, the metal expanded and sealed everything up. So on the runway, leaky mess. In the air, perfect. And then there's that story. Missile launch detected. What do? Turn, dive, deploy countermeasures? Nope. Throttle up and just go faster. And it worked because nothing could catch it. Well, not reliably and not consistently at least. It wasn't stealthy or invisible. It didn't need to be, because it was just gone. Here's where things get a bit interesting, because the Americans weren't the only ones playing this game. Because the Soviet Union had the MiG-25 Foxbat. This thing was built with one goal: speed. Nothing else, not maneuverability, not comfort, not even longevity. Just speed. Mach 2.8 officially, but Mach 3 if you're feeling brave or reckless, or both. The MiG-25 wasn't made out of fancy titanium like the SR-71. No. It was mostly stainless steel. Heavy, cheap, heat-resistant, and very Soviet. Still, it kind of worked. The engines were absolute monsters, but also very fragile. Push them too hard for too long, and they'd destroy themselves. Well, congratulations, you went fast, now your engine is gone. Some said they had less than 200 hours of flight time. That is crazy. The Soviets didn't care though, because it was meant for long missions. It was meant to climb fast and intercept threats, and leave, and it did that very well. In fact, when it was first discovered by the West, people panicked. They thought this was some super agile, super advanced fighter that could dominate anything. Turns out it handled like a brick at lower speeds. But at higher altitudes and higher speeds, this thing is a monster. It can reach altitudes of 80,000 to even 100,000 feet. Some modified versions reached even higher, and it set multiple speed and altitude records. Not bad for something built like a flying metal slab. Wait, we're still not done, because before all of these, before stealth, before modern jets, before all the fancy stuff, there was this absolute monstrosity. The North American X-15. This thing isn't even a plane, it's a rocket with wings. Mach 6.7 in the 60s. 60s, let me repeat, 60s! People at this time were trying to figure out how to break Mach 2, and this thing went, Mach 6. The X-15 was dropped from a B-52, just like the X-43, but instead of a scramjet, it had a full-on rocket engine, burning liquid oxygen and anhydrous ammonia, which meant one thing: insane thrust, but also very limited flight time. A few minutes, that's all you got. But in those few minutes, history was made. Pilots flying the X-15 reached altitudes above 80 kilometers. Some flights even crossed 100 kilometers. That's the edge of space, and because of that, some of those pilots were officially awarded astronaut wings. Imagine that, you take off from Earth, fly a plane, and suddenly you've got astronaut wings. Also, controlling this thing was not easy. At those altitudes, there's barely any air, so normal control surfaces are pretty useless. The X-15 used reaction control thrusters instead, like a spacecraft. Now let's circle back a bit because we've skipped something very important. Fighter jets. The ones people actually think of when you say fast. Like the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle. This thing is not the fastest on the list, not even close. It's around Mach 2.5, but that's not the point. The F-15 is fast and dominant. Over 100 aerial combat victories with 0 losses in air-to-air combat. Air-to-air combat, listen, air-to-air combat. Don't give me that, oh my god, I got shot. No, air-to-air combat. It's got twin engines, ridiculous thrust-to-weight ratio, it can climb literally vertically, and just keeps going. Radar, advanced, weapons, plenty, speed, more than enough. It's the kind of plane that doesn't need to be the fastest because it's already better at everything else. Then you've got something like the MiG-21, which, just bear with me, I know it's not the fastest, but it's worth mentioning for context. The MiG-21 could hit around Mach 2, which is impressive, but what made it special was production. Over 11,000 built and used by over 60 countries. That's everywhere! It wasn't the fastest, but it was one of the most widespread supersonic fighters ever, which is a different kind of fast. Fast to produce, fast to deploy, fast to spread across the world. Now, if you line all of these up together, you start noticing something strange. The faster you go, the less practical things become. The X-43, fastest ever, barely flies. The X-15, insane performance, but basically a controlled rocket. The SR-71, a masterpiece, but expensive, complex, and demanding. The MiG-25, fast and brutal, but not exactly refined or reliable. And your typical fighters, they settle somewhere in the middle of all of that, because speed isn't everything. At some point you hit limits: heat, materials, fuel consumption, pilot endurance. Modern warfare isn't just about speed, it's about so many other things that planes now don't really have to be all that fast. I mean, yeah, sure, they gotta be fast, but the need for a jet that goes Mach 3 or Mach 4 isn't really there, if you know what I'm saying. So, how much faster can we truly go? Well, Tom Cruise says 10.3 before your plane explodes. Alright, jokes aside, fastest plane ever made, X-43. But the most important fast planes, the ones that actually changed aviation, that is a whole different conversation. And trust me, that one gets even crazier. And that is called foreshadowing, so subscribe, otherwise you might miss it.